Tinfoil hat. Oh, what the fuck are you guys even talking about?
Global controls will have to be imposed, and a world governing body will be created to enforce them.
Welcome to Tinfoil Hat. We go deep, homeboy. Aaron, open your mind. Drink from the fountain of knowledge. There's lizard people everywhere. That's some interdimensional shit. Wake up, Aaron.
This is only the beginning.
Dude, you just blew my mind.
Are you ready to get your mind blown?
All right, guys, welcome to Tinfoil Hat. We are live from the WiseWolf Gold and Silver adjacent studios. Go to SamTripoli.gold, use the promo code Tinfoil, and get in on the Precious Metals game for as little as $50 a month, sent directly to your house. Today's topic is the Tupac cover-up. We're very excited to have this guest on. He has a new doc out that's currently on Tubi called Tupac Cover Up, and he has a podcast called the Tupac Assassination, the podcast on that podcast network. Please welcome to the show, RJ Bond. How are you, sir?
Greetings. I am doing well, and I really appreciate you giving me the opportunity to come on and plug the projects.
Well, we're excited to have it. This is a topic I love to talk about because it's just, you know, especially for people my age, it was such a big moment there. I believe I was in Vegas at the time when it happened.
Oh, shit.
So, yeah, dude, I think I was going to college then. So it's a big deal, and it's like kind of an end of an era and ushering in of new hip-hop. So I'm very excited to talk about it. RJ, for those who may not be familiar with you, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and where our listeners can find you?
Sure. The podcast was called the Tupac Assassination Podcast because the first documentary that I did, this is going back to 2007, that I did was called Tupac Assassination, Conspiracy or Revenge. And since that time, almost 20 years now, I've been knee deep in the investigation of the case, all the different ways that it goes and all the interesting people that you meet along the way. I started originally not having any intention of covering any of it. I was a cowboy. I rode on my horse and had my boots and literally and didn't in the early 90s didn't care about any of that. But I was fortunate enough to meet a fellow by the name of Frank Alexander, and we struck up a great friendship. He was godfather to my kids, but he was Tupac's bodyguard the night that Tupac was killed. So we struck up a great friendship, and one day, as fate would have it, the conversation kind of rolled around about, well, there's a story to be told here, and I had gotten into doing some other film production anyway. But Frank and I partnered up, and we kind of told the story and put it out on the front page in 2007. And ever since then, even though Frank passed in 2013, we're still telling the story. And, it just seems to be this never-ending development of events.
And new information constantly keeps coming out. And, this story's gotten bigger and bigger now with with everything going on with P. Diddy. Everything involved with that, and just like his role in all of this, it's kind of crazy because I don't know, man. When you heard them rapping about shootings and all that stuff, I guess I bought into it, but man, when it really happened, that was so crazy to me. It's almost this like manifestation. If you sing about something long enough, it's gonna happen to you.
Yep.
And it's just a crazy ass story. So the Tupac cover up is a doc on Tubi. Where do you want to start?
Well, it's a 6-part docu-series, and that tells you there's a lot going on there. We get into it deep, and you brought up a good point. Michael T. Williamson, who was Bubba Gump and Forrest Gump. He's on our show in the cover up, and he made a similar comment. He said, they almost prophesied their own demise. He and Biggie almost prophesied their own demise, and he said they kept doing it, and then finally death came calling. And it was really deep. I mean, it was really deep.
And there's a lot going on with that genre of hip hop, or what was labeled as gangster rap. And
Right.
then it got even weirder with drill rap. Like obviously I'm in my 50s. I don't really follow the drill rap thing, but you
I don't
know,
understand it at all. So you're welcome to there. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I mean,
I'm baffled.
we have the young Xavier Guerrero with us. Whenever
Uh-huh.
we want to hear what the kids are doing, we'll ask him.
Good.
But it just like that stuff. Like they're admitting the murders and all that stuff. It's
Yeah.
like the
Oh,
craziest.
so the thing is, they'll go commit a murder, and then they'll rap about it in their songs to like justify, like, oh, I just shot the person. So it's even more. They're just incriminating themselves.
Wow.
It's the dumbest thing in the
What a
world.
bunch of dumbasses.
It really is.
Yeah, I
Stupid.
mean, it's no telling on yourself there. Well, and I've heard that the courts now, like down in Alabama and Texas, where they're a little bit more, rigid with their court system, they actually are trying to hold these guys accountable for like that. What they wrote in their music was an admission of their guilt. And the funny thing is, there are some people that'll cop to it, and say that they killed somebody, and they never did, but they're going to hold them accountable anyway. Say, well, you say you did it, so you did it,
Yeah.
and that's a trip.
Yeah, well, that's these kids now. They're really dumb, and
Yeah.
they'll film themselves committing crimes for social media, or they'll rob somewhere and then they'll show all the cash, and it's just like,
Yeah.
yeah. We have a shirt on the show says the new common sense is the new punk rock.
I love
And it really is. I mean,
love it.
there's so many people that really lack common sense, but and it's interesting because you get into like this whole genre of like, I mean, I'm just gonna be honest with you. All these guys are kind of gangbangers, and then you kind of find out that they're down low brothers as well, and that seems to be a common theme within a lot of this. Like early videos of Tupac coming out being very sassy, and everyone's like, "What is that?" And you also get into the role of the intelligence agencies promoting lifestyles to this demographic that I think is a very powerful demographic, but they've been so propagandized for so
Yep.
long into the low vibrational activity of gang banging. And like if you look at like female black rappers right now, it is like nuts what they're promoting. And it's like
Yep.
all this promiscuity.
Yes, life is a strip club. That's their whole angle. Life is a strip club.
And
Do you think it'll swing back though, Sam? Because
I already see it is. I already
Yeah.
see it is. I think a
Yeah.
lot of people are seeing through what is being pushed on them. And again, it's like, we talk all the time about all these huge content creators that nobody understands how they're as big as they are. But it's like when the hidden hand, which we always talk about in the show, the hidden hand wants to promote you. The best way to promote you is availability, is showing you to everybody, and promoting you on the front page of YouTube, putting you on the radio. Back in the day when MTV was a big thing, showing your video. Like if you got into the circle.
Yep.
Of all the videos they kept showing you, on you were huge. You
Yeah,
were
there's
you were
no
just
mistake. There's no mistake there. When YouTube wants to promote somebody and they pick whoever it is they're going to pick. Mr. Beast didn't just come out of nowhere.
Right.
He kind of literally did just come out of nowhere. But you got to remember that YouTube can promote whoever they want to make it look appetite for the sponsors. That the sponsors, hey, look at this guy. You're a sponsor who might be prone to advertising at a certain demographic. Well, what YouTube will do is they'll move all those views and they'll shift all that views and that traffic to a couple of big sites or sites they'll actually build up to make it look attractive for these guys to say, hey, look at now, it just so happens you like those guys. Well, we'll put you over here with this channel and it's got a bazillion subscribers and a gazillion views. Who went there? Who really actually saw it?
I agree, dude.
Who knows?
I totally agree.
Yeah, I don't think there's any mistakes about it. I mean, because I look at half the content that I see on these. There's one guy I can actually say may earn it, and that's the guy that goes out to the middle of nowhere in the snow, and he has a survival show, and he goes out and he, will kill a deer or go out and build an igloo. He gets like 12 million views, but I kind of understand it because everybody I've talked to, I've mentioned it, and they go, "Yeah, we've seen that guy." So, I think he's probably one of the outliers, but yeah,
No, I'm
I don't
with you on
understand half
that.
those channels. Yeah.
But it's like if they can put you on that front page of YouTube,
Yep.
they put you there long enough, you will be big. You will blow up. And there Dana Carvey had a funny thought, not to be crude here, but he said if you took a bowl of shit and you put it on television, you could tour that bowl of shit around and people would come and see it. And
Yeah,
the best,
pretty much.
I would love if Joe Rogan, and he's so busy anyways, Joe, just to see if his dog could sell tickets. His dog's
Guaranteed.
got like 400,000 followers. If
Yeah.
he just said, "Hey, I forget the dog's name, Mandy or something like that, it's going to be at this theater," how many people
Sold
would
out.
show up to see the
Sold
dog just
out.
play catch?
Sold
Oh,
out.
not only that, he could sell tickets for people to bring their dogs with them.
Yes, 2 tickets. Yeah, you get
Tickets.
two for one.
There you
Yeah.
go. Yeah, well, we see
What a
it
great
all the
marketing
time.
idea.
So I was at the mothership one day, and Andrew Schultz was headlining the main room, and I got to sit down with him, and he's such a good dude. When I got my YouTube channel taken down, he called me up and he helped me get it back. Him and Rogan. So I'm very blessed that they were showing me kindness with that. But he asked me, why do you think Obama is getting outed right now for the guy who said he smoked crack with him, Big Mike,
Big
whatever
Mike,
that
yeah.
is.
We get that.
And I told him, and I don't think he was happy with the answer, but I still believe it 100%. And that is demoralization. There is a lot of pride in the black community. There's, let's be honest, some homophobia there as well. And if you kind of show them that their cultural icons are, in fact, down low brothers, that could be devastating. And that's what it's all about, demoralization. So you see that with this hip hop stuff where all these guys, there's questions on what they had to do to get those record labels, what they had to do all that. So this genre is super interesting to me. And I want to get into your movie, but I think that especially when it comes to like gangster rap and stuff like that, I think people really get confused. They start to confuse their culture for their heritage.
Yeah, good point.
And they don't realize that culture tends to be developed in a think tank and is pushed down by, again, we see influencers like the right just got busted where all the influencers were like putting out, like trying to, hey, we should allow soda to be EBT cards to buy soda, when it's like they're pushing, and they all put out the same tweet and they all got busted being basically
Very
paid off.
curated. Yeah, it's very curated, the whole thing. It's very organized, very curated. They play the song, everybody marches to the same drum beat.
100%. So we see this with this kind of, because you see interviews with old rappers. They're like, dude, there was never gunfire back in the day. If you were going to get in a fight, it was all fist fights. And then, NWA comes out with a bunch of like LARPs, man, like live action role players, like guys who were not who they were saying. I say this all the time. Ice Cube is Larry the Cable Guy of hip hop. He's playing a role. He came from he went to a private school. He had two parents who worked for the city. He wasn't that guy. He's great at lyrics, but he plays this role. And I love NWA, but I really do think they're CIA's Psyop.
Well, I'll tell you, it's funny. On the podcast, we just taped the podcast for this week yesterday, and we had on a guy by the name of Arnie Villarreal. And he was a narcotics officer on the Compton PD from 1988 all the way through the end of the 90s. So if you're going to talk to anybody who's boots on the ground regarding any of this stuff, he's the guy. And as we were talking, he was saying, like Ice Cube, none of them lived in Compton. They all talked about Compton. They all rapped in Compton. Ice Cube was like from Long Beach, or Snoop was from Long Beach, and I think one of the guys lived in Carson, which is another suburb of LA. And none of them on a good day would ever step foot in Compton. They all like to brag about it or have some hold. And I said, well, really, how many of them did you ever actually see? You're the narcotics guy in Compton PD. You're going to see all these cats and run around that, and it's like, no, none of these guys step foot. They all tried to claim it, but none of these guys would ever step foot in Compton. And I just thought that was the most hilarious thing in the world, that these fellas were just nowhere to be found, like you said with that Ice T. It's true.
Yeah, Johnny, I don't know if you were you ever an NWA guy? Were you ever into them?
Little before my time. Yeah. Before. I mean, I came much later to to that era of hip hop, but it was after the fact. That was before my time. Yeah.
I 100% believe that the only real one in there was Eazy-E. He seemed like he was the only legit.
And he was from Compton. He's now Arnie did say he was seen in Compton. He wasn't seen doing a lot of the stuff you'd expect him to be seeing. He'd be going to the liquor store or something like that. Wouldn't be anything nefarious. But he was the only one that was actually from Compton that actually had anything to do with Compton.
All right, let's get into your doc, but real quick, I'm going to be in Detroit this weekend. Then I'm going to be in Tacoma. I'm going to be at, before that, I'm going to be at our boy Xavier Guerrero's We Don't Joke the Same show on April 3rd. And I have more dates. And I got a big date coming up. It's not until January, but I finalized, guys. I'm headlining the main room at the Comedy Mothership in January. So it's going to be a big event. So I hope everyone
come see it
in Austin, dude. It's gonna be a big time. I'm getting my own weekend there, and I want to thank Joe Rogan and Adam Meek for that. So let's get into.
Fantastic.
Thank you, man. It's a big deal for me. I'm very excited about that. Won't be till January, but let's all come out and make an event, dude.
Got plenty of time to make arrangements for your kids and everything else. Come see
let's go. I would love to get my kids out to Austin, but that's a different show for a different time. So let's get into we talked about your doc. The upcoming trial of Keith D is very interesting. I mean, it seems like we're finally starting to get into it, huh?
Yeah, and it's funny. We had a great segue because a minute ago we were just talking about a bunch of cats who claimed stuff and started claiming about the murders and claiming that they'd done this or claiming that they had done that, regardless of whether or not they actually had. You got a lot more claim they had than actually did, and all the the falsies that claimed to be from Compton that weren't. You got this guy, Keith Davis, or Dwayne Davis is his real name. Dwayne Keefy D. Davis. Everybody knows him as Keefy D. And you got this guy that right around 2018 just suddenly exploded on the map. I wonder, we're talking about 22 years into the investigation. The shooting happened in 1996. Suddenly, 22 years later, this cat comes out of nowhere. And he's doing YouTube interviews, and he's doing a book, and he's doing a TV show, Death Row Chronicles, and he's telling this whole story about not only was he in the car with the guy that they say shot Tupac, but he somehow was involved with getting a gun, and it was, to say it was kind of surprising was the understatement. What made it more interesting to me, though, was that nobody did anything about it. Nobody cared.
So crazy, dude.
Yeah, nobody cared because they all thought the same thing I did. Oh, it's just another guy. They say, actually, it's true statistic. They say that over 31,000 people have called to Las Vegas PD over the last 3 decades and have claimed to have killed Tupac Shakur. 31,000 people have made that claim. I mean, they said Oprah did it. I mean, it gets nuts. They said
what we know about Oprah now?
Well,
that's
yeah,
not
kind of high.
The possibility.
Yeah, kind of high. Yeah, makes him look like Nostradamus.
Yeah.
But this guy comes out and it just, his claims just kind of died off. 2019, 2020 just kind of died off, and then suddenly in 2023. Vegas police suddenly you got, it looked like Siegfried and Roy was out there. They had the lights and everything and raiding his house. And then they come and arrest the guy, a search warrant. They arrest the guy a short time later. And they've gotten him sitting in jail. He's been sitting in jail for 1.5 years. And, to be perfectly honest with you, having studied this for as long as I have, and I kind of buck the traditional narrative of who they say did it and all that. And I've done that for years. When I looked at this guy, I'm like, what is this? Is this justice or is this blame? I mean, is Vegas? I'd hate to be the guy that was the Vegas PD detective around between September 6th, 7th, and the 13th, which is the week that Tupac was shot on the 7th and he died on the 13th. Every year, I would hate to be that detective, because you imagine every Tom, Dick, and Harry is calling up every year going, hey, what's going on with the case? And now you got every YouTuber, every influencer of Tom, Dick, and Harry that's going to call. I would take a vacation that week. I'd be gone. I wouldn't even be bothered with it. But I think that Vegas just decided that regardless of whether or not, we just can't do this anymore. And in Cover Up, we actually talk about a lot of the reasons why, and it wasn't what everybody thinks that it is in terms of what got Vegas off their butts to finally actually do something. I mean, I don't agree with what they're doing, but at least they're doing something. They're not doing nothing. And cover up came as a result of that. We talk about for several of the episodes we talk about how all the way back to the day of the shooting and before the shooting, there was a group of self-interested individuals that when the shooting actually happened, there was a lot of nonsense that happened that night, but there was, when the shooting actually happened, within an hour of the shooting, there was already an explanation formulated. Okay, and if that sounds familiar,
Yes.
it's shades of JFK.
All these psyops, they do that. All these cover-ups.
They had already figured it out within minutes of the shooting. They had already figured it out. They laid the guy. They pinned the guy that they thought did it. And this guy's greatest crime up until then was that there were a couple of Compton cops that were eating lunch at McDonald's or something like that, and he shot at them. So they had this kind of vendetta. They didn't like that. So whenever it came time, he happened to be in Vegas at that time. So why not? Why the hell not? And nobody actually even understands why he was in Vegas to begin with. So that makes it even weirder.
Hey guys, the markets are getting crazy. Yeah, we love crypto. Yeah, we love stocks. But you know what? You know what's solid like a rock? Precious metals, and there's no better place to get precious metals than at our good friends at WiseWolf Gold and Silver. Let me tell you about WiseWolf Gold and Silver. Join the Wolf Pack now. Trust me, because if you're paying attention, you know that de-dollarization is real. Fiat is fake, and you don't want to be left holding the bag when the dollar collapses. Gold and silver have been money through all of recorded history and are an excellent way to protect yourself from inflation and geopolitical turmoil. That's why I trust my friends at WiseWolf Gold and Silver for all precious metals, all things precious metals. I love it. I am part of the Wolf Pack. Every month I have precious metals sent right to my house, and I love it. See, WiseWolf Gold and Silver is veteran owned and A+ rating by the Better Business Bureau. No transaction is too big or too small. You can even roll over your 401k or IRA into physical gold and silver. And if you think you can't afford precious metals, think again. With the Wolfpack monthly membership program, you can get gold and silver delivered directly to your door for as little as $50 a month. As little as $50 a month. You can have precious metals. You start loading it up, man. By the end of the year, you'll have a good chunk of precious metals. Dude, it's crazy. Just go to SamTripoli.gold. You can see all the different plans they have. Man, it's like $50. Lone Wolf, Warrior Wolf, $125. Alpha Wolf is $250. And it just keeps going up. Sent to your house. Right there. It's that simple. It's that simple. Easy peasy. Get in, get out, get your gold, get your silver. I love it. I'm doing it. Dude, I'm telling you, all of these affiliates I use, and I use WiseWolf Gold and Silver. I use it all the time. It's real simple. So if you want to get in, this is how you do it. WiseWolf Gold and Silver also deals in and accepts Bitcoin. So here's what I need you to do. Okay, go to SamTripoli.gold, promo code Tinfoil at checkout to receive free constitutional silver. That's right. And remember, in a world of bulls and bears, be the wolf. Do you think the ball? We'll get into the suspects, but do you think the ball was so? If you're saying they already have a story, they already have basically who they think did it, the story of it. How early do you think the plot began?
Well, I think in terms of I do believe that there was like I said, a group of self-interested individuals. We had the Tupac cover-up. We've got the FBI, the lead investigator for the FBI that was in on this case, Phil Carson, and great dude. He comes out and he lets the world know that the chief of security, or the head of security for Death Row Records, was an FBI informant the entire time he was there. Okay, that he was there. Suge Knight's #1 guy at Death Row Records. Okay, his head of security, who arranges all the protection and bodyguards and everything like that, was a confidential informant for the FBI. And I'll make it better. He says, and he made no mistake that he wanted to take over Death Row Records. Make no mistake about it. He wanted Suge gone. He wanted to take over Death Row Records.
Wow.
Made it clear to the FBI. So when you talk about something that predates anything that happened that night, and of course that night there was a whole bunch of tomfoolery that happened. I mean, it was stupid. Guards didn't have radios. They told them not to carry weapons. There
That's
was
so
all of this
convenient.
nonsense that happened that night that defies everybody's explanation. It's just a head scratcher.
Would you say the fight was a coincidence or
Oh
just
yeah,
random?
so let's get into that
Yeah,
before
well,
we get
sure.
into the subjects.
Yeah.
So the question I have is, now you may not have this answer. I would love to know your opinion on it.
Mhm.
So if we know they pinned it on a guy that maybe had nothing to do with it or didn't
Right.
do it. Do you think it goes back far enough that somehow they get that guy for some reason to Vegas that night? Where
Yeah, I
it's
do.
almost like a Pat Oswald,
Yeah. Like an
with
Oswald. Yeah,
JFK,
like an
yeah,
Oswald. They
Oswald.
put him in the area. Yeah, I mean, there's it's funny because she's now since changed her tune, but one of the Las Vegas, the reporters that was one of the first ones to ever cover this, and I kind of came in a little bit late. I was 12 years late to the party when I got involved. So these narratives have had a chance to run for a while and actually gain a lot of footing. So you come in late to the game, you're always playing catch up. There was a lady that she wrote for the Las Vegas Review Journal. She was like the main one interacting with there. She's the one who sold his autopsy photos in her book. Okay, with Tupac's autopsy photos. So kind of gives you an idea there, the character. But she was the one that came on our first documentary in 2006, and she said he didn't have a ticket to the fight. Nobody knows why the hell he was standing. He had no entourage around him. He was literally standing by himself in this one area
Who's
of
this, the shooter or Tupac?
the guy, the shooter of
The,
Tupac, Orlando
the
Anderson, the
person they
guy,
blamed.
yeah,
Okay.
Orlando Anderson's the cat's name, and he was standing in a part of the MGM Grand Hotel where basically it's just a bunch of elevators. They've got a couple of ways in and out of that little lobby area, but it's basically a hub for a bunch of elevators that you can take up to the hotel rooms, and he's standing around there literally with nothing to do. All of the surveillance footage shows him walking by himself through a crowd of people, and he's standing out. He's got a jersey that's bright white. So you watch these murky VHS videos of the surveillance footage, and it's like dark, 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 because it's night, dark, dark. He's got a white jersey on with a number like 16 on it, just big, giant numbers. So he's impossible to miss. You can track the guy all the way through. And he's standing there, and they said he had no ticket to the fight. He didn't have an entourage around him. In fact, he had split from the entourage that was with him that night. So nobody knows why he's there. And we went back just for fun. We went back to the location itself, brought a camera, brought a bunch of guys, and we said, could the people that ran and jumped this guy at the MGM casino, could they have actually seen him from where they were allegedly standing to point him out standing in an elevator bank somewhere? And if you know anything about Vegas, that's a crowd of people. That's a sea of people and
Damn,
slot
dude.
machines. Could they see the guy to say, there's the guy? And then they run over and jumped him, and that was that. But the guy, he was there, but to your point, I think the whole thing predates the event in Vegas. I think they pre-selected the guy. I think they put the guy up. They knew who they wanted to hang for it. I think it was, and Suge Knight's even come out recently, and he's kind of throwing his hat in the ring about it and say that it was an inside operation. Won't give the specifics of who the inside is. I have my guesses, but it was an inside operation. And then they had the guy, like I said, they put the guy out. He went to the hospital that night for a torn shoulder. So there's a question of whether or not he was even physically capable of being in the car and doing the shooting like they think he did.
That is nuts,
Yeah.
dude.
Yeah.
That
So,
is nuts. So
yeah.
so real quick before we move on from that, but so it is almost possible that even the entourage could be in on it, right? Because if you're like,
Yeah.
because
Well,
I've always said,
yeah, there are. There's a couple of characters that were part of that. Hey, he's over there. Go get that guy. And Tupac took off running, and they all jumped him and did the. You see it on the video. They thumped the guy. But when you talk about the entourage, there's a couple of guys from the entourage that are still hanging out today with that chief of security, head of Death Row Records, Reggie Wright, still buddies with him, and have not openly said a word about anything about what happened that night. So you're
What's
right, spot on.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of, I've always said this, like you know, these figures, they don't get assassinated unless the people who are there to protect them allow it to happen. You know, when the Israeli prime minister got shot
Yeah,
and killed, it was literally, they literally came out that his whole bodyguard unit
yeah.
was basically in on it, and they allowed him to get shot. So
Well, that's what they say. Dan Bongino said it the best. I mean, he said layered incompetence equals intent.
yeah, yeah, that's great, dude. That's a great layered
I can't take
competence.
credit for that. That's my man Dan. He hit it, and God bless him for taking over the FBI
So
because
so
he's
that
on it.
so it's like that deep. And there's been other movies or other docs, and you may have put it out, you may have talked about it, but Tupac wanting to leave death row.
Yep.
There was like an account. We can get into the all the different stuff. So he's driving to this. I forget this. Is it on Flamingo? He's on Flamingo, right? When he's
Yeah,
driving.
he's going to a nightclub called Club 662, and he was driving down Flamingo Boulevard, big entourage of people. Suge Knight was supposed to be in the first car. Suge always demanded he be in front. This time he wasn't. There was another car in front of him. They get down to this intersection of Flamingo and Koval. Koval is about maybe 3 or 4 blocks off the strip. So even back in those days, it was still a little dark. It was still a little bit. If you ever been around the Vegas Strip, it's big and bright right on the strip, but you go 2 blocks either way, and it kind of just falls off into nothingness.
There's literally an area called what's it called? I can't remember the name. It's right by the Stratosphere, and it's like
Yeah,
the shadiest area you'll ever go
yeah,
to. Oh,
yeah,
Naked
yeah.
Vegas, it's
Naked,
called.
yeah, yeah, Naked City.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Naked. It's so shady, and Atlantic City's a lot like that. But the interesting thing about that club that he was going to, I would always watch that club. It would open and then it would close because it was
yeah.
so far off the strip. There's no real foot traffic around it. So when
Well,
this club kind of blew up, it was
yeah.
very crazy to me.
Well, it was also too because nobody could get a permit for it. The way that Club 662, and it was originally called something else. Helen Thomas was the owner. She was the widow of a big gangster guy that had that nightclub. And when he died, that nightclub kind of closed. And they had tried for a long time to get somebody to be able to take over the nightclub. But what's interesting is that you can sell the building all day long. It's the liquor permit that becomes the problem to try to get. And it's like property, it's like real estate. If you own it, you have to sell it, but the county gets involved, and the county basically dictates who gets it and who doesn't. And whatever alchemy they use to figure that out, that's how you get it.
That's a
So
great word to use too.
yeah,
Alchemy.
yeah. And this Helen Thomas, she tried to get rid of it to a bunch of people. Well, Suge Knight had an interest in it, wanted to buy it, and wanted to set it up as a hip hop club out in Vegas. Not a bad idea. But when the problem was is that Vegas wasn't going to give Suge Knight a liquor permit. I don't care who you were in Vegas, and he had the most powerful attorneys, George Kalisis, David Chernoff. He had the most powerful Vegas attorneys, even Oscar Goodman, working for him. And they even, it's like Humpty Dumpty. All the king's horses, all the king's men couldn't get Suge Knight a liquor permit. So what they did, and the only way that they could work around it, the only way that they could work through it was to get a conditional use permit from the county. And a conditional use permit would be like if you're going to have a fair, or you're going to do a big, flea market or something, and it's a one-time event. You're going to have parking, and you want the cops to help you out and set up barricades, and you're going to block this area off, and you do a one-time thing, and that's called a conditional use permit. It's a specific time frame. You can do it, and within the context of that conditional use permit, you can specify whether or not alcohol is going to be served or not. So we know it today like a pop-up. Club 662 was basically like a pop-up nightclub.
Dang.
Yeah, you know what I mean? That was really what it came down to, that they had to give a reason why it would be okay to open up the nightclub for a weekend or for an evening. This particular night, and then they had to get pretty desperate. They had opened it up 3 or 4 times already. The county knew what was going on, so they'd have to, that's what they were saying, they had to pull a liver out or something like that to get the conditional use permit. This time, they said that it was going to be a benefit for the Barry's Boxing, which was an Las Vegas cop who had an inner city youth, taught him how to box and stuff like that. So that was the charity, allegedly, that they were going to open the nightclub for, and all the proceeds from that event were going to go to this boxer. Now, did that boxer ever get any money? Who knows? But but that was how that club operated. And that's why you never saw it open, was because they had to get a conditional use permit every time they wanted to open up that nightclub. Suge had thought that maybe they would get it on a permanent basis later. Yeah, there's a good picture of it right there. And they made the signs for it and everything, But at the end of the day, it turned out to be a pop-up thing. And it's yet another example of something that never survived the shooting. They had people that were going to run it, and one of Tammy Hawkins, one of Suge's baby mamas, she was given the opportunity to run the place if they went forward. And yet somehow none of that ever moved forward. Sometimes when somebody dies or gets shot or goes to jail, the business still continues. If you got a good business, it still continues to go and make money, right? Should be able to survive it. No, everything just folded like a bunch of lawn chairs. And
I don't know. It's there's very few places where somebody gets shot that it's like they kind of got to be. I don't know, like the Comedy Store is a place where someone was shot and killed, and it just kept going.
Yeah.
But it's like if you had a pizza place where somebody got shot, you could keep going to that pizza place. Like I'd be like, okay, I can buy another pizza.
No, and it was even tougher for the fact, like I said, once and of course the shooting didn't happen at the club; it was just affiliated with Death Row Records. So they're going to be. The county would just obviously, if anybody knew Death Row Records from that point on, that was so infamous and it was so tied to the label, they're not going to let those guys be a draw anymore. They didn't want a hip hop club in Vegas. If you remember back in those days, MGM had an amusement park. They had a thing for kids. Circus was blowing up.
Yeah. That was Vegas's let's be a family destination.
Yeah, where the dad goes and blows the mortgage at the craps table. Bring your kids. Bring your kids, send them to the amusement park. We'll give them some tickets to the amusement park, and you can gamble the mortgage away. That was the thing. So the last thing they wanted was a bunch of hip hop goons gang guys coming in and messing around with that family thing that they were trying to build. So, the odds of Suge getting a permanent club were pretty slim, but he was trying. He had all the right people involved to get it done. But
so crazy.
Yeah.
It's so crazy. So let's get into some of the suspects.
Mm-hmm. So I think there's probably over the years it's kind of been more and more refined. It's gone from 31,000 down to a handful. So
like
we got good. At least we've gotten that far with it, right?
Yeah.
At least we've gotten that far. There's the number one suspect that's been the established narrative, the Lee Harvey Oswald of the Tupac case, is a fellow by the name of Orlando Anderson. We just explained it to him. Orlando Anderson was a South Side Crip, grew up in Compton, South Side of Compton, part of the gangs down there. The kid was a actual high school graduate. A lot of those kids don't get out of that system, but back in those days when Orlando Anderson was going to school, the Compton kids were all being forklifted up to the San Fernando Valley in California, which is a very upscale area.
So crazy, dude.
And yeah, the busing. That was the whole thing. It was called busing. And they took all those Compton kids and they forklifted them over. And I lived up in that area growing up, went to high school in that area. Taft High School, where Orlando Anderson went to school, is a very hoity-toity, prestigious high school.
So crazy.
So, again, with the whole Compton narrative that these guys were a bunch of uneducated gay. No, they were graduating from Taft High School in the San Fernando Valley. I mean, they were just so far from it. And Orlando Anderson, in spite of having the gang ties, he was pretty well thought of in the neighborhood. He was a guy who was trying to come up with, like everybody else, trying to do music, trying to get all that together at the time. And I think the problem that Orlando Anderson had was that he made enemies of two of the Barney Fife cops that were Compton PD. And you got to realize Compton is a 10 by 10 square mile area, right? So take that and forklift it to Arkansas or Arizona and just drop it in the middle of Arizona. what you've got is you got Mayberry. You've got a small town, literally a small town with a few police cars, the local guys. I think the police department had 100 people total on the police department, total. So
when you say it's Mayberry, are you saying it was just like a simple little city?
Yeah, that's it.
I totally agree with that, man.
Yeah.
So when you moved to LA, and you're from my era, you've heard nothing about Compton.
No.
And you go to Compton, there are some nice areas there. Now, there's a big discussion that Compton and Inglewood, because Inglewood, no good, right? You go there, it's kind of where what they call Black Hollywood lives.
Yeah.
Where all the stars of the black part of Hollywood, that's where they all go to live.
Well, especially now since they built SoFi Stadium, they built the whole brand new multi-gazillion-dollar sports and entertainment complex in Inglewood, right there, right off Hawthorne Boulevard, and it right in the center of it. So Compton is, maybe 10 miles away from that, and yeah, you've got a whole different demographic that's moved in there. But back in those days, it was still by many considered to be just your local small town because they weren't part of LA proper, LA City. Compton had its own police department, fire department, school district, still does. And so, but I always say you have to take Compton out of LA for you to understand how simple things really were. You've got, like I said, you might have 2 or 3 narcotics cops.
Yeah.
You don't have an army. You have 2 or 3 of the gang guys. They're the gang unit guys. And see, these gang unit guys were the ones that got Tim Brennan and Bobby Ladd. They got mixed up with Orlando Anderson because, like I said, they were having a burger at McDonald's or wherever they were having lunch. And they say, no proof, but they say Orlando Anderson shot at him while they were having lunch. So kind of from that point on, Orlando Anderson kind of had a target painted on his back because now you've got, watch the Dukes of Hazzard. What's it like when you get a sheriff that doesn't like you? Okay. You got to kind of go to that reference point and say, you get on the bad side of a couple of local cops. Look how it worked out for Rambo. Get on the bad side of a sheriff, right? Or small town sheriff, you get on the bad side of them. This is what happens to you. So, and again, the gang cops were being run by the father of Reginald Wright Jr., who was Reginald Wright Sr. That gang cop guy in Compton that ran the gang cops didn't like Orlando Anderson was the dad of the guy who wanted to take over Death Row Records.
What?
Yeah. So, how do you not?
Holy shit.
Yeah. That's how this breaks down. And these 2 gang guys, they were the first one, the dad, Reggie Wright Sr., and these 2 gang guys were the ones who came up like within an hour, less than an hour of the shooting. Orlando Anderson did it.
Holy shit.
Yeah, so that kind of stuck because, a lot of people have kind of simple minds. And I go with Occam's razor. The simplest explanation tends to be the right one. I go with that. But in this particular case, nobody knew what the hell was going on. And so how is it they couldn't put him in the car? They never have been able to put Orlando Anderson in the car. There's no car. There's no gun. There's no evidence. No eyewitnesses to him being in the car that shot at the BMW that Suge and Tupac were in. Nothing. But nevertheless, that's our guy. And that's what stuck. 5 minutes after the shooting. So when we go back to, and you'd ask me the question, who are the main suspects? Orlando Anderson is number 1 with a bullet, only because they just kind of planted that in everybody's mind and it just stayed. So everybody goes, oh, okay.
You're basically telling me that the guy who was like one of the top cops, in Compton, his son was number 2 at Death Row Records.
Correct. Yep.
That is insane.
Yeah.
Wow.
Truth is stranger than fiction.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Holy shit, man. Guys, listen, we're having a real emergency in the world, and that is birth rate. Nobody's having kids, and there's one company working night and day in the laboratory trying to stop it, to reverse the trend, and making babies, and that's Blue Chew! Blue Chew, that's right. Blue Chew, an American company making American boners for American holes. Let me tell you about Blue Chew.
Have better sex with BlueChew. BlueChew is the original brand offering chewable tablets for better sex. And starting now, BlueChew is offering a combo so strong it'll knock your socks off, it'll knock your neighbor's socks off. You're going to have to move out of town because of the amount of noise you'll be making. BlueChew Max has arrived, and it combines the active ingredients of Viagra and Cialis into one chewable. This combo acts fast and lasts. Guys, be ready when she needs it and get your first month of Blue Chew free. Great sex is just a few clicks away. Sign up at BlueChew.com, consult with one of their licensed medical providers, and once you're approved, you'll receive your prescription within days. Blue Chew tablets are made in the USA and prepared and shipped directly to your door. And the best part, it's all done online. That means no visits to the doctor's office, no awkward conversations, and no waiting in line at the pharmacy.
Blue Chew is for American. Blue Chew wants to make men rock hard. They told me that's our mission. That's the mission. Okay. They will stop. They will not stop until every man is bricked up like a brick shit house. Okay. Till every tent is pitched. Till every rod is raised.
Make life easier by getting harder and discover your options at BlueChew.com. And we've got a special deal for our listeners. Try your first month of Blue Chew free when you use the promo code Tinfoil and just pay $5 shipping. That's promo code Tinfoil. Visit BlueChew.com for details and important safety information. We thank Blue Chew for sponsoring this podcast.
So this Orlando Anderson was kind of set up to be the Lee Harvey Oswald of the whole thing.
That is crazy.
You know, they set him up, and then in Cover Up, we kind of go through that whole narrative and how it lasted all those years, and they had to kind of refresh the story from time to time and shake it up a little bit. But at the end of the day, that story continued for all those years. Another suspect, if you want to call him that might be involved in it, other than Orlando Anderson, would be that number 2 guy. In fact, Keefe D, the guy who's being tried right now, he filed a motion to dismiss about 3 weeks ago in the trial, and he posited that narrative that Reggie Wright Jr., who was the number 2 guy at Death Row Records, want to take over Death Row Records, that he orchestrated the whole killing. That's his reasonable doubt move right there. That this guy, it's not me, it was this guy that set it all up, and he's blaming. Now, it's important to know, too, that Keefe D, the guy who's in trial right now, who's sitting in jail, he was Orlando Anderson's uncle.
What?
Okay, so that's why he's under the pin right now. Because in 2009...
Well, also, he's been talking about, right? I mean,
absolutely. Yes, I said, yeah. That's it. He's putting out book. He put out a book. He did several interviews.
Crazy, dude.
And he allegedly, he confessed to all of this. So we started asking questions like, why? If you're the guy, and there was a cop by the name of Greg Kading, an LAPD cop, who was supposed to be investigating the Biggie thing, but for some reason he got fixated on the Tupac case. And he decided he wanted to solve the case. And he, according to his book and several interviews he's done, he decided that the Orlando Anderson thing was that was it. That was so now we got to make the picture fit the frame. So he hustled Keefe D, who was a drug dealer at the time. He was a PCP dealer. And actually, we found out yesterday in our podcast that Keefe D was actually Compton's biggest drug bust ever, which was 60 kilos of cocaine that they bagged at one time. Okay, in a Winnebago. I mean, figure that. But they that was all Keefe D's dope. That was what a big time dealer. He wasn't the head of the gang, but he was a pretty big time drug dealer for the car.
He got let out.
What's that?
I'm saying he got an easy deal. Like, how do you get how you get let out after getting caught with all that?
Oh, he didn't. He went to jail for years. He went to jail.
Okay, he did do a lot of time.
Yeah, Keefe D's been in and out of jail several times, and out of prison, I should say, several times. But so that's why he's doing it now. He's like, oh, it's another day in the life. He's just cooling his jets in county right now, which is kind of club fed type of situation. He But again, going back to the Keefe D thing, this detective Kading got Keefe D under an alleged pin where they caught him selling some PCP, and and of course, and I'm going to say something, and if it sounds like the most retarded thing to say, I can't make sense of it either. But here was the proposition. This guy, Greg Kading, detective, LAPD, goes in, and he's got no jurisdiction to investigate the Vegas case anyway. He's got nothing to do with it. He's just going to decide that he's going to be Columbo and make a deal out of it. So he goes to Keefe D and he says, hey, Keefe D, we have you on this PCP bus that we set up, basically put our own CI in there and we set you up. And you could go to jail for 25 years for doing this PCP bust. Unless you tell us everything you know about the Tupac Shakur killing and your nephew Orlando Anderson's involvement in it. Well, the two are kind of incongruent. It had been me, I'd have told him, charge me first. If you got a charge and you can charge me, and then we'll talk about let's make a deal. But they didn't do that. They scared him. They told him he couldn't use the attorney, Edie Fall, that he had been using for years, Keefe D. And they brought him in and allegedly made a proffer deal with him, with the U.S. attorney, Wayne Seawright, and said to him, tell us everything you know about the Tupac killing. Given that situation, I think dude is going to say whatever the hell he has to say to make them happy. Okay, you want a story? Let me tell you a hell of a story. Here you go. I was in the car when it happened. It was him. You're right. Am I good? Yes, you're good.
Damn, sell out your own family, dude.
Yeah, I go home.
That's crazy.
What else did he have to offer? They were hanging 25 years over his head. And Orlando Anderson was long dead by then. So, it wasn't hurting.
Oh, shit. Okay. Yeah, I'd be like, yeah, that dude did it.
Yeah, Orlando Anderson, the dead guy. Blame the dead guy. He did.
How did he die?
How did he die? He died, I want to say 3 years after the shooting. Okay. He died at a shootout at a car wash, allegedly. And he died in a gang-related shootout in Compton. Interestingly enough, and I have this on tape now, we're going to use it season 2 for Tupac cover-up we're in production on right now. When Orlando Anderson was killed, the first guy on the scene was Reggie Wright Sr., the dad of Reggie Wright Jr. The guy was number 2 at Death Row Records. Okay,
that is crazy.
He was the first one on the scene, and Arnie Villarreal, the guy that I interviewed, was the second one on the scene. He said, when we drove up there were no gang members around. There was no signs of a shootout. Orlando Anderson was sitting dead in a car, and Reggie Wright Sr., I guess when he pulled up, they were nose to nose, police car wise, they were nose to nose. And he said Reggie Wright Sr. was standing there with his flashlight in his hand, looking like that I was the last person that he wanted to see. And he's standing there with his flashlight in his hand. And I took us half a beat and I asked him, I said, Arnie, you remember all that real well? He said, yeah, I was the first, other than Reggie Wright Sr., who was already there for some reason, minutes after the shooting. It took them a minute and a half because they all heard the gunshots. Compton's such a small town. They heard the gunshots at the police station and took off. It took them a minute and a half to get to that location. He gets there. Reggie Wright Sr., the gang cop, is already standing there with his flashlight in his hands and a dead Orlando Anderson.
Damn!
Okay. Now, this gets better. I said to him, because it just picked up on it. I don't know why God was talking to me that day. I asked the question. I said, Arnie, you remember this like it was yesterday, right? He goes, yeah. I said, did Reggie Wright Sr. have his gun drawn? And he thought about it for a minute. He goes, you know what? RJ, you're right. He didn't have his gun drawn. I said, you're damn right, because he didn't sense any danger. He's standing there with a dead guy, an alleged gang shooting, car all shot up, dead gangbanger there.
Damn.
He rolls up on it, and he doesn't have his gun drawn? That would be the first thing I would do if I was going to roll up into your gunshots blazing, a guy's dead in a car. You don't know where anybody else is. You're going to pull your gun. You're not going to walk out front with your flashlight looking around like, the Hardy Boys or something. I mean,
cops in LA draw down on everything that moves.
Yeah, 100%.
That's right. They hear a mouse fart and they draw down on it. That's right. They do. So, but Arnie's reaction, I'm so glad we got it on camera. His reaction to that question was gold because it tells you right there that the guy that was first on the scene sensed no danger. And why would you do that after an alleged gang shootout? You know, you think maybe somebody's lurking in a bush, somebody didn't run away. If in a minute and a half they all took off in different directions, somebody might be lurking in the bush. The other thing was the street was dark and there was nobody standing outside. You know, when gunshots come off, you know, people duck, but after it's quiet, people come out looking to who the hell got shot. Nobody. So yeah, Orlando Anderson was dead. And Keefe D decided that, you know, for whatever reason, you know, like he told me, and many times I've interviewed him, he told me, look, he said, I didn't have 25 years to life. I told them what they want to hear. I made some bullshit. It was all bullshit. I just made it up. Blame my nephew, who everybody thought anyway was the guy that did it. And I just said I was in the car when he did it. And unfortunately for him, he did that, made that confession, if you will, to LAPD. Kading wrote about it and put it out in his book. They never prosecuted him. Vegas never prosecuted him. And Vegas never believed for a minute that Orlando Anderson was the guy. They never believed it. No matter how hard Compton PD tried to push it on them, they didn't believe it. Just wasn't happening. So Kading puts it out in his book. He says not only is Orlando Anderson the guy, but now his uncle admits that he was there. So you have a witness to it. And Keefe D, that book came out in 2011, I think it was. And again, nothing. Just crickets. Nothing. Drop the book. Nothing says that. So
hold on. In the book, does he say he was in the car?
Yeah, in the book, Kading says Kading wrote the book. He says when he interviewed Keefe D and that he had all these tapes, recorded tapes of him saying it, that Keefe D says he was in the car. And Keefe D admits that he said it. He said, yeah, I just bullshit him. I told him what they wanted to hear. You know, I was going to do 25 years. They told me I was going to do 25 years for PCP. What the hell else am I going to do? I got nothing else to offer, so why not?
Yeah, it's crazy. Like the lie is one thing, but the continuing of the lie is where you get in trouble.
Well, and that's what really sprung everything back to life again, because the Orlando Anderson thing, that had fallen under its own weight. There was just so much doubt about that, and Vegas didn't believe it anyway. So there was nothing there. So when Kading's book dropped in 2011, it became this like, oh my gosh, kind of moment. Like, wow, you know, what were we thinking? And you have to understand, and I'm sure that you do, you know this, people have confirmation bias. If I'm a gang guy and that's all I've heard for the last 20 years on the street is that Orlando Anderson did it, I'm going to believe anything that somebody tells me that confirms what I already believe. Okay, yeah, I knew that. Okay, yeah, it has to be. I already knew that. If all my friends told me that, everybody knows that. And that's what you get. Keefe D resurrected that whole thing. Now, again, Kading's book came out in 2011 and nothing. Just disappeared off the map. 2018 comes around and Keefe D gets an opportunity to do an interview on a show called Death Row Chronicles. And that was the first time that he had done an on-camera interview where he talked about his involvement in this case. By this time, Keefe D pretty much figured nobody was coming after him. Kading dropped it in 2011, and he had been interviewed by Vegas police in 2009, told the same story. Interviewed by the LAPD 2008, told the same story. Nobody's coming after him for anything. So in 2018, he does this Death Row Chronicles interview and says nothing different than he's been saying for the past decade. Nothing. And then Vegas police says, oh, we heard that in 2018 and that reinvigorated us. New detectives, we got reinvigorated. He's admitted that he's done it, so that's good enough for us. Let's go.
Unbelievable. You'd be that dumb. Like most people be like, bro, they're not coming for me. I'm going to shut the fuck up.
Yep.
And not even talk about, no, hey, dude, can we interview you about your involvement? No.
Yeah. Well, and you know what? And there's even some again, I don't want to go too far down the rabbit hole, but there is,
we're all about it.
Well, for example, that Death Row Chronicles interview was arranged and set up by this Kading guy and his cronies, and the guy that interviewed him for Death Row Chronicles was the guy that worked on Kading's documentary Murder Rap, which was based on his book. Kading's hands are all over it. Darren Dupree, his partner, his hands are all over that Death Row Chronicles interview. And you got to understand that Kading had wrote a book, put out that theory, said that there were tapes. Nobody believed him. That was the end of the story. Suddenly, this Death Row Chronicles comes out. Keefe D now co-signs the book. And that's, you got to understand, that's the part. That's the point. You got to co-sign the book. You have this story nobody believes. Now the guy comes out and says it on camera. Whole different story now. It's public. It's out in the media. He co-signs the book, Kading's book. He co-signs it. Now suddenly Kading's doing a show called Unsolved on USA Network with his story about how he caught the guy and this whole big budget production, multi-million dollar production on USA Network, Universal Pictures. He's going around doing that. So Keefe D got $150,000 for doing that interview. Now, I don't know about you, but I might be inclined to tell a story or two if somebody puts $150,000 in front of me.
Damn, yeah. Okay. I'm listening.
But the other side of that fence, and this is important because you got the nice lawn on one side of the fence, you got the junkyard on the other side of the fence. Okay. Kading was a guy who had had many cases of excessive force thrown at him on the LAPD. He got convicted of that, putting a gun in an infant, things like that. Okay, real superstar cop. He's like the Vic Mackey of the LAPD. He is not a guy who was afraid to cross the line. Let's just put it that way. And he hit back. One time there was a court transcript of he wanted a guy to tell a story a certain way, to give a story, spin a story a certain way, the way Kading wanted it. Just say this. He didn't say it. Kading said, "You effed us," and handcuffed him and threw him in jail. Okay? This is a cop who hits back. Okay? It's a cop who hits back. You don't go with the program. You don't go with the story. You don't stick to what's been said or what he wants you to say. He can make your life comfortable. Sure, you get $150,000, but what happens if Keefe D gets $150,000 and goes in there and says, "Hey, I made it all up. Just FYI, April Fools." Okay? I just made it all up. Now what? Now you've got two problems. Number one, USA ain't going to pay $150,000 for anybody that would recant their story and just say, there's nothing here. Sorry, guys. Sorry, I wasted your time. But you also have on the backside, you got to wrote a book and put that all out there publicly. And he really wants you to co-sign this narrative. And he's had a habit and a pattern of hitting back after if somebody doesn't get with the program. So when you talk about, well, Keefe D went on this Art of Dialogue and he went Vlad TV and he does all these YouTube interviews where he basically tells the same story. Badly, by the way, very badly. Because there's a thing about when you make shit up, you can't keep the story straight.
Yeah, 100%. You forget what lies.
And in the documentary, we actually break down when he does one interview, and we show all the inconsistencies of his story. I mean, he even tells a story that he met with Suge Knight and Tupac on Saturday, or it was a Friday night. He met with Suge and Tupac, and they hugged. And he told that story 3 different times, 3 different ways. But the upshot of it was that they all got together and met that Friday night, and then Saturday was supposed to be the fight. And it wasn't until one of the interviewers actually stopped him and said, well, it's pretty much common knowledge that Suge and Pac came up Saturday morning. They weren't even in Vegas on Friday night. They're not? And it was, I called it the Scooby-Doo moment. The look on Keefe D's face. Yes. The look on Keefe D's face when he goes, yeah, what? And, they weren't in town Friday night. So everything you've told in these 3 different interviews at 3 different places is all bullshit. It's 1,000% bullshit. And you go, oh, well, my memory is getting bad. It's like that. So you've got a guy who's inconsistent in all his stories. He never gets the story straight. He tells the story wrong. He's never read his own book. The book that was published was written by a ghostwriter. He's never read the book. I asked him that. I thought, Keefe, did you ever actually read the book when it was done? No. Because in all fairness, Keefe, he's probably got like a 3rd grade education. I mean,
I was just going to say that.
Yeah.
Can he even read?
Yeah. Well, and there you go. Well, I learned that. I published a book called Tupac 187 back in 2014, which basically lined out where the investigation was at this point. My core audience, nobody reads. So, so the book didn't do particularly well. It didn't, in all fairness. It didn't, because it had
audio books, dude. Yes. Audio books.
I think now that would have been a great thing, but because I said because words. That was the reason the book didn't do well, because
maybe the
words
new
matter.
podcasts and stuff will
Words
resonate.
matter.
Yeah, because words matter. So anyway, but again, the main suspect has been Orlando Anderson. This guy Keefe D is actually sitting in jail right now because the Vegas police decided that they had their guy because he admitted it so many times. Hey, he wrote a book saying he did it. He did all these interviews. He said he did it. Well, that's not enough they think it's enough, so they charged him. They think that's good enough. Time will tell in this case whether or not that's going to hold water or not, because one of their key witnesses against Keefe D happens to be the number 2 guy at Death Row Records. He's one of their key witnesses. So, it's going to be an interesting time to track what happens with the case. It doesn't go to trial until they just pushed it a year, February of next year. And we rushed to try to get, we thought they were going to trial in November. So we rushed to get the docu-series out because we kind of wanted to explain we don't know who did it for sure, but this guy did not do it. This guy was not the guy. And did Vegas have their man? What was interesting, and I'll throw 30 seconds on this, but what's really interesting, and we bring it out in the documentary, and I think it's so important because it's been so overlooked. Vegas police started investigating this case back in 2018. Again, they were reinvigorated. That's what they said. ABC News, we were reinvigorated. We saw the Keefe D story. What happened in 2018 was there was an investigative journalist for a place called Center for Investigative Journalism. Amazing. In Vegas. And they're one of these think tanks that, they're like Scripps, where they'll do these big civil rights pieces and stuff like that. And they put a FOIA request on Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department for the Tupac files. And they said, hey, we want the files. And Vegas said, you're not getting the files. And they said, well, we don't think, they said the reason you're not getting the files is because we have an active and ongoing investigation. You know how that bullshit goes. Right. The Christopher Wray thing, we can't talk about it because it's ongoing. And they played that card. Center for Investigative Journalism, a guy by the name Andy Donahoe was his name. He hit back. He said, no, you're not doing anything with the case. Give us the files. They said, yes, we are. So Donahoe sued the Vegas Police Department in 2018. Okay, it was 2017, I'm sorry. In 2017. And said, you got to produce these things because you're not doing shit. And Vegas fought it, and they lost. So Vegas appealed it like they would do. They appealed it to the Court of Appeals, and they lost again. And then in 2018, they filed in the Supreme Court of Nevada, against LVMPD. And LVMPD lost. Supreme Court, they lost. So they had to give major portions of the Tupac file to this Center for Investigative Journalism because they weren't working the case. I mean, that was the biggest thing, that now suddenly you're having to dole out half of your investigation file. They got to keep a few things, but when they were doing the actual court case, they had to list out everything that was in the file. And then the judge could make the decision on what they were going to get and what they weren't going to get out of this list. And so it was like a master list of, okay, now we know what everything's in the file. We can't see the detail, but we know what it is.
Yeah.
And what happened was, and the craziest thing about it was that it showed, for example, that Vegas hadn't done a live interview on tape with anybody in years. In fact, when you're talking about the Tupac Shakur case, of all things, do you know how many recorded interviews that they had done in the first 10 years of the investigation?
How many?
9.
Damn.
9 people, and 7 of those 9 people were at the scene of the crime, and they recorded them at the night of the shooting.
Oh my God.
Okay, so you're talking 2 people, 20 years have gone by, 2 people that they deemed important enough to make tapes of, to tape and record the interview. Now, they could have gone out and interviewed people, I'm just talking to you, and do that, and there was no tape recording of the interview. But when it's important enough that you get an official statement from somebody that was there, we know there were dozens of witnesses that were never talked to. And this kind of confirmed that. So in 2018, I'm sure there was a phone call because, you got now you have the county attorney on the phone. You've got the governor on the phone. we just got had because this Andy Donahoe guy, we got to release, the court's deciding, but we're going to release this case file we said we've been working on. What's the optics of that going to be when they come to find out we ain't done shit? That was when they suddenly got invigorated. I call that, they say invigorated. I say they got a cattle prod shoved up their behind by the governor and the county supervisors and everybody who really would look bad if the truth came out about it. So, and this is perfect for tinfoil because, you know, but the good news is it's not. This really happened. They did it, and I'm sure that the head of the LVMPD, who was a new guy, he just got elected at that point, Kevin McMahill, I think his name is. He had just gotten elected. So there's this phone call that comes down. I can't prove this, but I'm imagining. There's this phone call that came down from the losing attorney at the Supreme Court who says, you guys better get up your butts and go make this an ongoing active investigation, because if it comes out that we're not doing anything, we'd like to see this case solved. Let's just put it that way. Okay, let's go grab Keefe D. He's low hanging fruit. He said he did it. Why not? Let's get him. And that's it. Because at the end of the day, dude, this is it. It's over. Whether or not Keefe D is found innocent or guilty, this is going to be like OJ on the golf course, looking for the real killers. You're never going to hear about it again. When Keefe D, if he's found guilty, well, then history will write itself. But if he's found not guilty, Vegas isn't going to put up anybody else. You know that. That's not how it works. So, they'll say, we got our guy, and the jury said otherwise. There you go. Case closed.
So that whole Diddy thing, you think that's just a distraction?
No, I think Diddy's done a lot of stupid shit, to be honest with you.
Yeah,
I mean, they all did
Diddy's
back in those
shady
days.
as shit.
Yeah, I think he did. But now, did Diddy, I don't personally believe Diddy had anything to do with Tupac getting killed in any way, shape, or form. And, you know, they tried to put Keefe D back in New York with Zip, the guy said he got the gun from. Zip didn't want to talk to him. You know, there was no corroboration. There's been no link whatsoever between Diddy and the Tupac case. None. People will say that, but you know, there's no evidence to support that at all. Now, has he done a lot of other dumb shit? Yeah, he's going to go down for a lot of dumb shit. But I'm sorry, I should have asked if I could swear, and I didn't know.
You can totally fucking swear if you want
good.
to. We don't care.
I didn't know. Yeah. I think Diddy, you know, Diddy's fucked. I think he is, but not for the reasons that they're trying to hook him up with the Tupac killing. I don't think it has anything to do with it.
So I think Tupac also runs into a problem that Malcolm X had, both when he was alive and when he died, is if you're shitting on cops constantly, all the time, in your art, in your speeches, all the time, you're never, ever, ever going to get them to investigate, find out who killed you. And another example of that is
he shot two cops. Tupac shot two cops.
Well, yeah, the North Hollywood bank robbery. Do you guys remember that huge one?
Yep.
And those guys had all that armor on.
Body armor. Yeah.
Cops. Yep. So the cops had to run to a gun store to get better guns.
Yeah, because they had pea shooters. Yeah, they had their pea shooters.
So they went and got better guns. They shoot these guys. These guys go down. Supposedly the guys are still alive on the ground. And the family of the guys that did the robbery, sue the LAPD because he said that they were alive and they didn't do anything to help keep them alive. I'm like, yeah.
Yeah, right. Yeah, okay. Yeah, and?
Yeah, they shot him up. So when I heard Malcolm X said nobody did it, like Malcolm X would have people like come to fuck with his house. He'd call the cops. They wouldn't show up. Yeah, because I'm not saying it's right. I go, but I understand why they're not doing it, whether it's right or wrong.
Yeah. Well, I think Suge Knight's had that same problem. I mean, you know, Suge Knight is the only living witness to actually could say who he saw that might have shot at him and at Tupac. He's the only living witness. And I happen to think there's a different guy that was the shooter that was involved. I think I know who it was. And I think it's a former, or not former, he's dead now but he was an LAPD cop. He was dating Suge Knight's estranged wife.
Yes,
for 4 years.
That's come into play too. Like,
okay, for 4 years. And so when somebody gets shot at or somebody gets killed, the first person they look at is the spouse. They say, what's the motive of spouse? Well, gee, if Suge Knight dies and the spouse can inherit Death Row Records, and she's buddy with the number 2 guy at Death Row Records who wants to take over the label, so they got their proxy. Then you've got this guy, and again, this is, like I said, the guy's name is Kevin Gaines. He got killed by another cop. Okay, Kevin Gaines was such a hothead and such a knucklehead that he called 911 on himself. Okay, he stood out in front of a house that he had with this girl, and he called 911 and he said the N has a gun. Okay, and called the LAPD in on himself. Why? Who knows? But he did.
On this show, you can say the M word too if you want. Go for it.
Okay. Well, yeah.
No, again.
I've been accused. I've been accused of being the racist, so I try to stay away from those things. But he said, dude has a gun. He got killed by another cop, Frank Liga, because he pulled his gun out, brandished his gun in a road rage incident, and he just happened to pick a guy who was an LAPD detective who was equally a hothead as he was, and he just blew him away through the door. Boom, boom, boom. Just blew him away through his own car door and killed the guy. But Kevin Gaines was Sharitha Knight, Suge Knight's wife, her live-in boyfriend. Now, if you look at the Orlando Anderson thing and you say, this is a simple revenge plot. Orlando Anderson got beat up earlier that night, and so now he's going to go take a single gun and take on 25 gangsters who are all carrying guns on their own. If the Alamo sounds right, that's about right. He's going to do that, though, but it's a simple revenge plot. You beat me up, so I'm going to kill you. Okay? If you're willing to accept that, let's say you're just kind of not a critical thinking guy and you say, okay, that makes sense to me. Okay. Kevin Gaines was dating the wife of the head of the record label. Okay. Kevin Gaines was in Vegas. We can prove, unlike Keefe D, we can prove Kevin Gaines was in Vegas. There's all kinds of LAPD material that says he was in Vegas the night of the shooting. Kevin Gaines was allegedly, and I put double quotes around it, allegedly stripped down by Suge Knight, taken out to the middle of the desert, and basically left for dead. He had been beat up in a van. He had several, I would call retributions, but he got checked by Suge Knight and the guys several times because of his involvement with Sharitha, okay, with the wife of Suge Knight. Now, and all I'm saying is this. If you're willing to believe the revenge motive of an Orlando Anderson who gets dusted up in a hotel, and that's enough for him to take on the whole entourage and do a shooting and go kill this guy, what do you say about the guy who was the boyfriend of the wife, the estranged wife, who gets beat up, and who's a cop, good shooter, has motive? How much can you ignore that? If you're willing to believe that simple other revenge motive, you got a whole nother guy right here, and it explains, in my mind anyway, why the LAPD has run interference on this case since day fucking one. Okay? Why? And that moved over into the Biggie thing. It come right over into the Biggie thing. Okay? LAPD had officers in Vegas at that time on special assignment. Clear as day. We have the paperwork. We know it's fact. Kevin Gaines was there in Vegas that night. Okay? If I had been dusted up like that guy had been dusted up and taken out to the desert strip naked and been left for dead to walk back, I think I'd be wanting some payback. And you got to understand, it wasn't just Tupac in that car. Take Tupac out of the car. Suge Knight's in the car. Mm-hmm. Okay? You have to consider whether or not Suge Knight was actually the primary target. Tupac was with the car. Maybe Tupac was collateral damage because he was in the passenger seat. That's one of those things that we talk about. We look at in the show. It goes deep. That's why it took freaking 6 hours to do the fucking documentary. I wasn't going to do another one. I've done 5 commercial documentaries on the Tupac case. Okay. And I even executive produced Nick Broomfield, who's a very well-known director. He did a show called Last Man Standing. It was about Suge Knight and Death Row. I executive produced his movie. And, so I've been at the top of the game regarding all of the widgets and the details. I wasn't going to do another one. I'd said everything I had to say about it. But when Keefe D got arrested, I was like, man, we gotta say something about this, because this isn't justice. This is blame. And so I started cutting the show. I got to an hour and a half. Didn't quite say what I wanted to say. 2 hours. Didn't quite say what I wanted to say. By the time I got to 4 hours, I called my distributor. I'm like, fuck, I'm stumped. I said, I wanted to do a movie. I got a 4 hour movie. This is like fucking War and Peace. And they know, because when I did Battle for Compton, which was Tupac Assassination 3, Battle for Compton. And by the way, it goes over the whole history of Compton. When I did that, that was like
so crazy,
dude, that was like 2.5 hour movie, almost a 3 hour movie. They could barely fit it on the DVD at the time, back when they were doing Blu-rays and DVDs. They could barely fit the fucking movie on it, because they're like, oh, you can't make it any longer. But people were mad because it was so dense with information that people had to watch it like 2 and 3 times to try to catch. Somebody was saying something, and then there was a document up here, and you couldn't focus on any one thing, so you had to watch it over and over again. In this one, I didn't want to do that, but what ended up happening was got to 4 hours, and I'm like, dude, I'm doing it again. I'm trying to package all this shit together so that they can do it. Well, times have changed. I'm getting old. I'm 58 now. I'm getting old. Times have changed. We're not doing DVDs anymore, where you got to worry about compressing it or putting it on, on the Black History Channel, or you can't, whatever you're going to do, you're not going to put it on there. You get to the point where they have this thing called the Docu-series now.
Yep.
So I'm like, oh, wait a minute, that sounds kind of fun, kind of cool. So I did that, and I doomed myself in the process, because it's a bitch to do a docuseries. I never thought in a million years it would be a bitch to do it that way. But when you do that, when you get in there and you do that, you have to create a beginning and a middle and an end for each one. And you have to try to make it fit within the whole bigger narrative. So it's not like I can just take a 6-hour movie and just cut every 2 hours and say, stay tuned for the next episode. It's not like that. You have to create a beginning, a middle, and an end, and leave a teaser at the end for each one, so that motherfuckers will watch it. When it's been see next episode, people are like, yeah. Let me see the next one. You got to leave them wanting to do that. So there's this whole weird ecosystem of a docu-series that makes it so much structurally different than doing a movie. Movie, I got a beginning, a middle, and an end. That's it. I'm done. Docu-series, you got 6 beginnings, middles, and ends, but they all have to fit together. They all have to make sense. So I get my hands off to a lot of these guys, hats off to a lot of these guys that make these, documentaries, even Gold Rush, 20 episodes of that. You gotta make it all work. And then, of course, when you go to do QC, it's suddenly QC fucking times 6, and it's it's closed captions times 6. It's E&O insurance times 6. He's like, oh, you got a feature? Yeah, I got 6 of them. So it's like that. It was a whole different way of working, a whole different way of thinking about it. But I just felt like we just couldn't let it go. That, this information with the FBI finally stepping forward about what they knew about the players, it just makes a completely different look at the case. Because we have that. Now we've got that objectivity, because, 30 years. We can look back at everything and kind of put everything together where it all fits. We're not in the washing machine. Even when I started in 2007, you're kind of inside the washing machine getting tumbled around while the case is unfolding. Because people aren't talking, they're not doing TV shows, there's no dead confessions, deathbed confessions, none of that shit. So we have the ability to do that, and I'm real proud of it. We're I can't believe I'm even saying this, but and then I say this every time. I'm done. We're not doing anymore. I'm done. This is it. I've said everything I have to say. We've gone for broke. Tubi did me dirty. Tubi did me dirty. They put up, if you notice, if you go and you put that Tubi back up again, you notice something about it. If you it says season 1. I didn't ask them to do that. This was a self-contained 6-part docu-series. They're the ones who put season 1 on there. Then, of course, start thinking about it a little bit and think about what you didn't put in and maybe what you got left. And he goes, season 1. Well, I guess that means that they would be willing to do a season 2 of the show. And they did, and they are. So, the we're not done telling the story yet. It's, that's the thing.
It's crazy. So the guy that they pinned it on is what's his name? Willie Brown, Larry Brown, Johnny Brown,
Millie Bobby Brown. No, his name is Dwayne Keith Davis. Otherwise,
Dwayne Keith Davis.
Yeah,
Dwayne
otherwise
Keith
known
Davis.
as Keefy D. That was his.
No. Who his dead nephew? What is his name?
That dude is Orlando Anderson.
Orlando Anderson. Wow. All right. Final question.
Yeah.
Now that you might do another season, but what's next? Are you done with doing these docs? Is there another case you want to focus on?
Well, I want to get back to riding my horses like I did when we started this whole thing. I've had horses this whole time. I spend less time riding horses and more time worrying about dead rappers. So to say that I'm done, I think from a forensic historical perspective, I think we've told the story that needs to be told that brought it up to date to where we are now. But I've been given the good fortune of the family, Keefy D's family called me up after the show dropped, and I didn't do any work with them at all. Nothing. Didn't talk to their attorneys, didn't talk to their PIs, had no conversations with Keefy D, nothing. None of that whole thing. Because I wanted the documentary to be pure. I didn't want Vegas saying that it was propaganda that was set up by the family, or I'm trying to influence the case by the court of public opinion. I didn't want any of that shit. None of that baggage. So I dropped it on my own, put it out. It's out. I got a call probably about 2 weeks after the show dropped, and it dropped on Tupac's death anniversary, September 13th. By early October, I was getting a call from Keefy D's family thanking me with all the warts and faults. I don't paint Keefy D up to be a nice guy. Okay? He's inconsistent, he's a liar, he's a lot of things. But they called me to thank me because they said, at least you took an honest look at it and you're putting it out there for what it is. And they thanked me for it. Now I've been given access to the family, the attorneys, the investigation. And so I think that season 2 is going to end up being a little bit more like Making a Murderer, where we're going to be working with the attorneys in their offices as they go through the evidence, or they look at and they confront the witnesses that are the Vegas thinks they're going to put up, and so it's gonna be a lot different, more cinema verite kind of show where you're in the wheelhouse as the trial unfolds, and then what happens afterwards. I think that's the right way to finish it. I don't see anything after that I would be any good for at that point.
How's KPD's time in prison? Because he killed Tupac, and I'm pretty sure a lot of people are trying to, get one on Tupac, trying to kill him to say I killed Tupac's killer.
Yep.
How's it going for him?
That's a great question. And it's funny. It not well. He's in protective supervision, which is solitary confinement. He gets 1 hour out, 23 hours inside the cell, out for an hour. And but amazingly enough, and it sounds like something out of a Sons of Anarchy show, honestly, he was granted, he went to go meet with his attorney, and he was coming back from meeting with his attorney, walking down the hallway towards his jail cell. And the rule there in the detention center is that no two inmates that are killers should be in the same physical space as each other, because that's just a bad thing, okay? That bad things can happen. Yeah. The video shows Keefy D was walking back to his cell. There's a guy who was accused of killing his girlfriend, almost beheading her because he didn't like her. He's washing his hands. He's got his shirt off. He's washing his hands right there in that little common area where all of the jail cells were there. Keefy D walks up, and this guy lunges at Keefy D. Now, and Keefy D, because Keefy D's a little heavier than he is, used gravity to he's thinking, just laid him down on the ground, just kind of knocked him down. And Keefy D can hold his own. But this guy attacked Keefy D out of nowhere. He was washing his hands, and the video clearly shows he was aggressive towards him. Keefy D didn't know what hit him because he was walking back thinking he was going to his jail cell. But you're looking around, every one of those cats is supposed to have a corrections officer. But the thing about it is that just like Sons of Anarchy, apparently this correction officer that was with the guy washing his hands decided it was a good time to go to the bathroom or go down the hall to go check some other jail cells. and left this cat by himself. So when the commotion started, he comes back out like, "Oh, what happened?" So yeah, so it's like that. They've done him dirty a couple different times now. He got beat up. He claims the guards beat him up. I don't know if that's true. I mean, he claims it, but so he's had that. But I think what's funny is the worst thing that they did to him is that I was on the phone with him talking just a couple weeks ago, and he told me, he goes, "Hey, listen, they're calling me. The wardens are calling me. I guess I got a visitor." And I said, "Oh, you do?" Because he doesn't get visitors. I'm like, "Really? You got a visitor? Who? Who is it?" He goes, I have no idea." And by the way, I was recording that phone call at the time, so I've got this. I've preserved this. And he says, "I didn't." He says, "I don't know who it is. It's somebody. They're telling me I got to go." So okay, fine. We hung up the phone. Next thing I know, he's got an interview with ABC News where without his attorney, and they're interviewing him, and you could see it. That's what's on. It's on ABC News now. I mean, you see it. He's in there and he's crying, and they're really, they chose the worst moments of the interview, but they totally ambushed him, and there was no way. Keefe D didn't ask for an interview with ABC News. It was Clark County and the LVMPD who had worked with them on 2020 before on the Keefe D case. They got together and decided they were going to do an interview with Keefe D, regardless of whether or not Keefe D wanted to do the interview. So it's really one of those, and like I said, the parallels, the Patsy parallels with the JFK story and Oswald and all these guys. I mean, it's the same moves, and unfortunately, I just can't let that go. I just don't, because the problem is that's us. That's us. If something I say, I may not like this guy, and I say, next time I see you, I'm gonna kill you. Okay. Or I'm bragging to my friends, "Oh yeah, I did this or I did that or whatever," and then the cops come and arrest me for something I said. That's our First Amendment right there, man. What happens to that? It's not against the law to tell a stupid story or to say stupid, fucked up things. But when our government starts to hold us responsible without any other evidence except for what we said, that could be you, that could be me. And I have a big problem with that. A big problem with that.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'll never admit to a murder that I didn't commit.
Yeah. Well, again, but like I said with the ABC interview, if you got behind the camera, you don't know what's behind that camera. If there's 15 guys with guns standing on the other side of that camera and you're in front of the camera, think about your typical hostage situation. I'm fine. Everything's fine. Hostages I'm good. Everybody's treating me well. I had a steak dinner last night. And they put the sign down, and the guys with the guns and the masks behind them are, lower their weapons. I'm not sure.
Not even that crazy. Not even that crazy. You get committed for a crime, and they tell you either you admit to it or you do 25 to life, or we'll put another case on you. You do 20 instead of the whole life.
That's right. So or they tell you it's okay. You're not going to get any trouble for saying anything. Which dumbass he believed that, but. Maybe he had a profit motive for doing it, but the other part of it is that all these people that did these interviews with him, and this is really important, all these cats that did these interviews that he did, because they go, "Oh, he was interviewing all over the place." Now, he did about 5 or 6 different podcasters or YouTubers, I guess you would say. Okay, they did 5 or 6 of them. They all know each other, and they all run in the same clique. And they're all in the same clique as this Greg Kading, the guy who did the original deal. So all of the interviews he did he didn't do an interview with somebody random or neutral. They were all YouTubers that were from that same clique of people that would have Greg Kading on, the same guy that, apparently caught him. And yet he's telling that story inconsistently and everything else. So you're right. I wouldn't say it. You wouldn't say it. But we don't really know, and that's part of it, and I kind of want to leave it at that because it's kind of, this is the Tinfoil Hat podcast, right?
Yeah.
That if you say something, or I'm saying something, like I said with the hostage thing, you don't know what's going on behind the camera. You don't know what was said before. You don't know what was said after. And again, I've always felt just like Suge Knight. You think that Suge Knight's going to say Kevin Gaines shot him? Or shot at him? Because that's a cop, and you're in jail. You think that's going to go well for you? You start accusing cops of being involved in shooting you? That may be why he's cagey about why he's not saying who did it. He says he knows who did it, but he's not saying. And that sounds good for the street code, the thug thing. That sounds good, right? But with him, that could be a whole different motive that he may not say it because they got some people behind there that wouldn't take that very well. So be careful what we think about Keefe D and about his confessions about things, because you never know. You never know. And,
I understand.
Yeah.
I understand.
Ew.
I really do.
Sorry I droned long about that, brother.
No, buddy, at all. It was great.
Yeah.
This was a great interview, man. You know, I've heard this story of Tupac, but this was incredibly enlightening and mind-blowing, and it was a great discussion. And we appreciate you coming on. I absolutely loved it. One more time, tell them where they can find you, RJ.
You can find me hanging out at Tubi, which is Tupac Cover Up. You can see it for free. We didn't want to charge anybody or make anybody rent it, so it's free so people can get the truth out. You can catch us on the Tupac Assassination Podcast. It's on Spotify, YouTube, anywhere where you can pick up a podcast feed. We're out there, and then I do live shows occasionally on the Tupac Assassination YouTube channel. I do live shows. So
all right, man.
That's
This
me,
has
man.
been great. Thank you so much for coming on. Let's break down the episode. All right, what'd you guys think?
Nothing's changed, dude. I don't know if you know, but you know Adam 22?
Yeah.
No Jumper?
Yeah.
A couple people on his podcast were talking crip shit, just talking, and they're arrested for opening their mouth.
Well,
just like that
for
guy
murder,
that got
not for opening their mouth, but opening their mouth for killing somebody, right?
Allegedly, yeah, but making
I don't
crimes.
understand what you're saying. So somebody went on his show and admitted to killing someone? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
No, so a little word on the street.
Admitted to crime.
Yeah, his co-hosts have admitted to crime, to like burglary, like robbing dispensaries, but very nonchalant where they don't say nothing, but the FBI has enough info where they connected them to the crime.
You're dude, if you go on a podcast and talk about fucking crime, you're a retard.
Yeah, I mean, that was the one thing I couldn't get behind in this episode, was this kind of empathy for the guy Keefe or whatever, DJ Keefe or whatever his name was.
Yeah.
Admitting to it.
Yeah, I mean, like, listen, I have friends of mine that told a lie way early on in their career, and Keefe D, in their career, and I get why they did it, because they wanted to work in Hollywood, right? Not saying it's right, but I get it. But the issue becomes, at some point you have to be like, yeah, exactly. I was like near the building, kind of.
I don't quite understand what you're saying, Sam. You said you have friends that told a lie to have a career. What does that mean?
Steve Renazizi.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Jeez, you're a retard.
I didn't know what you were talking about. I mean, I thought we were talking about people talking about crime, admitting to crimes.
No, but what I'm saying is that, that narrative was out there because, the country was super patriotic at the time. And especially the guys on Punk'd. The guys on Punk were super patriotic. Yeah. So when they found out he survived 9/11, that was, now Steve, I'll be full disclosure, one of the best comics you'll ever see, one of the best guys you'll ever see, and was an incredible actor. But it's like Hollywood, the everything's rigged against you. So you kind of like try to find an in. And I get it. What I'm saying is that he should have at some point walked it back.
Yeah, but this is completely, to me, this is completely different. That's just something that's harmless. Like, this is you implicating yourself. He told a lie, and that was the crime. The lie was the crime for Steve. These are people admitting the crimes they already committed for clout, I guess. I don't know. I mean, it's just,
okay. So we have three different things going on here, right? We have Steve trying to say something to game the system. Then we have guys on the Adam 22 being fucking retards for admitting that a crime that they committed, which is retarded. And then we have this Keefe D just trying to say anything to get out of jail.
Yeah.
But then continuing to tell the lie to anybody that would pay him money.
Yeah.
Imagine him being in jail for something. It was all a lie in the beginning. Imagine, oh, dude, I'm going to go on there, tell him I killed Tupac. I was there on the strip, blah, blah, blah. No one's going to believe me because I really didn't do it.
Let's see if
Now
we
you're
can
in
get
jail.
you arrested, XG, for killing Tupac. You want to see? Let's do a little art
Why
project.
would we do that?
Just
What
for
is
a
that?
laugh to see if we could.
I mean, he's already in trouble. Just
Yeah, let's do
being.
Johnny. Why don't we do you, Johnny? Why
Yeah,
don't
Johnny,
we go?
why don't you go?
they would-
Why is
they-
it? Because he's
Good.
the minority on the show?
Yeah.
Does
And then we
anybody
all know
really
you got a good
believe-
shot, Johnny. It probably was you. You do have a good shot, I heard.
Does
Yeah.
anybody really believe I'd be in the same place as Tupac? You know what I'm saying? Like, there's no chance of that ever happening.
That's true too.
Hey, what about you, Sam? You were already in Vegas. Could have been you.
Okay, no,
Yeah,
would
we're
not.
too young. Yeah, we're too young to have shot Tupac.
Okay, now it's like accuse everybody on the show. Save your own ass. Is that what it is?
Well, it
I
definitely
thought it
was
was a
indeed.
great show. I thought it was sometimes when we've discussed it before, you could be like, we already discussed it. But at the end, dude, I mean, literally the black JFK. Literally.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Would you agree that Diddy has nothing to do with it?
I don't know if I'm willing to write that guy out of anything.
Yeah, I mean, dude, he could have something to do with October 7th. I don't know.
He might have shot JFK, dude.
You never know, dude. You never know. So he could be in on any of it. So I'm not going to sit here and say that he's not part of it, but it sounds like just like with Biggie Smalls, the cops were totally LAPD was involved.
Yeah.
And then you kind of get into that these are both guys that sang about killing cops. And then you get into that the second at the record label that sang about killing cops was the son of one of the most powerful cops in Compton.
Yeah.
Holy crazy.
You got to go.
That part, I wish I'd ask him a little more about the structure of the police department in Compton, because where's the overlap there with like the LAPD? How does that work with the beats and stuff?
Oh, that's a great question. Is it all under LAPD?
Yeah.
Is Compton considered Los Angeles? I know it's LA County.
I would assume it is part, but he said like Compton PD, right?
Very interesting, Johnny. Johnny, good job not asking that.
Oh, I was Compton sheriff. Okay, so it's part of the sheriff's department. So they have a sheriff. Let's see. Okay, Compton Police Department. Oh, maybe it's been disbanded. Okay, it says the Compton Police Department was the law enforcement agency for the city of Compton until it was disbanded by the city council.
Yeah, for being corrupt.
Yeah,
I wonder why.
So crazy.
And then it contracted with the county for law enforcement services. So it's served by the sheriff's department now.
All right. Well, I thought it was a great discussion. I hope you guys enjoyed it too. A very, very crazy discussion. Guys, if you go to SamTripoli.com, you can grab my dates. Again, Detroit, Redondo Beach.
Redondo Beach. Like the song.
Then we're going to be in Tacoma. Then we got more dates coming. And again, in January, I'll be headlining the Mothership. So I'm very excited about that. So hopefully you can all fly in and hang out with the kid and we'll have a great weekend. New content up, man. The website is just on fire right now. Premium content left and right. Everyone's loving the new premium content I'm doing called Whatever This Is. We do deep dives. Brad Binkley, Austin Picard. I mean, just a great conversation. Just breaking it all down, putting up as much as I can every week. Cash Daddies is on fire. It's been fire lately. Our numbers are up. We're at 1,200 people. So he's like putting up stuff, 3-4 videos a day. And so like Howie's great, dude. Howie's really great at this job, man. So $20 sounds like a lot until you see what you can make back. So go to patreon.com/cash daddies. What else do we got here? New t-shirt. Go back. New t-shirt. Let's see if he put up the newest t-shirt. Let's see if he put up. Nope. Keep going down. Keep going down. It should be, if it's the new one, it should be up. It's not. Yeah, I'll ask him when it's going to get up, dude.
No.
Then the Zuck is.
Fuck Zuck, though. Fuck Zuck.
Dude, we have Project Blue Beam Bigfoot fucking t-shirt. Fake Bigfoot invasion. That was Eddie Bravo's idea. So that t-shirt will be up very quickly. Yeah, go to samtripoli.com, grab those. Gold and silver, we love it. Rife Technologies. Just get in line. Shout out to Matt Rife. He was in an accident. We send you love from the Swarm. Oxygen hydrogen brown gas. You want to look young for a long time? Oxygen, hydrogen. That's what you got to get in. You got to get your hydrogen in. Mineral King. People are buying it left and right. It's a great way to get healthy, get rid of the toxins. Energy for chemical free body. Working on my own supplements. Harley Ray. EMF rocks, dude. Get those Faraday bags. Get rid of your dirty energy, dirty electricity. Joel Staley, Brain Supreme. I mean, dude, look how good he was today. Look how good our good friend Xavier Guerrero was. Just crushing it today. And then finally, Prometheus. If you want offline, if you want a decentralized website's the best. Nuke Social. You go to Nuke Social. You get all my social medias there. My social medias go right up there. Go to Tinfoil Hat. Hopefully, Xavier will get on it a lot. Johnny,
I've been on Telegram. Trust me, I've been on Telegram. Go over there on Telegram.
Just trying to pull bitches. That's what he's doing over there. Tinfoil Hat, Telegram, Zeros. Hopefully, we'll be back soon. And all my podcasts. Guys, what do you got?
Hit that like button, subscribe, and don't forget to buy those tickets for SamTripoli's. We don't comment the same at Redondo Beach, please.
We got a new Broken Sam coming out Thursday. It was a good one. We went 2.5 hours. We always say we're getting out of there quickly, and
what is that number when we say that? An hour and a half? Is that what we're
well, that's what I have in mind is like 90 minutes. Yeah, and it's just never happened.
We're trying our hardest.
We got all kinds of stuff though. We talked about the new election laws or the new election executive order, the crazy leak about the Yemen bombing, which is just unbelievable.
I made a reel about the Obama brother.
The Obama brother?
Michelle Obama's brother? The podcast with Michelle Obama's brother?
I was going to send you that one. Yeah, okay.
Why? What's coming out now?
No, I think he means a Broken Sam, right?
Okay.
Yeah,
all right.
I was watching the good shit.
All right, guys. Enjoy these highlights.
Here's a clip from the latest Broken Sim. Tell me what you think this guy means.
Hey, this is a question I had for Johnny and Sam, and we'll keep it quick and simple. Is Christ is king? Is this correct?
That's it.
Okay, because that's a big controversy right now.
What is that? What?
So there again, every year, this group of people, Jews, come out and say that saying Christ is king is offensive to the Jews. You know?
Really?
Yeah. And it's a big thing that Candace Owens is on right now, and she has this hilarious video where they set up a debate about whether the term Christ is king, and they had 15 people there, and 13 of them were Jews discussing this, and you're like, that doesn't really make any sense. And they have one Christian and then a Indian dude, and the rest are Jews, you know?
That's the craziest thing I've ever heard.
Yeah.
I'm trying to find somebody talking. The only thing I can find is
go to Candace Owens.
That's what I'm looking at here. It's
put in Candace Owens Christ is king.
It says in November 2023, political and social commentator Candace Owens sparked an online firestorm. I'm going to by tweeting Christ is king. She just tweeted that in November 2023. By itself, that phrase would hardly be surprising to read from a person who calls himself or herself a Christian. So I guess she's the one that is being accused of having polluted it. I guess I don't. I'm doing Twitter now, but that is what am I going to her Twitter or just typing in that phrase?
Yeah, just Twitter. Christ is king, and you should find one where she's breaking down this study that they did, in which they had a debate: is Christ is king offensive? Now, I've said this in stand-up comedy. If you have to ask if it's offensive, it's not offensive. You automatically know it's offensive, right? So it's like, I remember I was working at Crunch, and a buddy of mine worked there. He was the nicest guy. And I will go, he was Jewish. I go, hey, is Jew offensive? He goes, I don't know. Let me ask. And I go, dude, if you got to ask, it's not offensive. Okay?
Yeah, totally.
Right?
No, that's totally right. Yeah. I mean, if you didn't immediately react to it, it's not. Is this it right here?
When you look at, because I just said, okay, who funded this study? Who did this study?
This is it.
Is this Christians coming together and recognizing a problem
she's so hot.
Amongst Christians? Because that would make a little more sense. I would still strongly
stop it. Real quick, it's like, listen, anybody who gets to this level, you always have to go, okay, how did that happen?
Yes.
But the question becomes, and I'm open-minded to anything anybody says, is like what she's talking about. Is that add to the whole thing that where the whole theory about why Hitler's job in World War II was to scare the Jews, so they all moved to Israel? Have you heard that theory? Like that was a big thing because the Jews didn't want to move the European Jews.
No, why would they?
Want
they
to
had
move to
great
Israel.
lives.
Yeah,
in
they
Europe,
were living. They loved living in Europe. Yeah. They didn't want to go, so the whole theory was they had to scare them, and that was a big part of what Hitler's role was. So they always say that
Yeah, they had to force them on. It's almost like the Ukrainians pulling these guys
Johnny,
onto the front
I've already
lines.
said this before. If you go, Sam, gun to your head, who went to the camps? I think it was the Orthodox. That, if you're asking me, I know it's a dangerous conversation, but that's my opinion. I've said it before on Conspiracy Social.
It kind of reminds me though of them forcing them to Israel. It's like kind of like how the Ukrainians are snatching up kids and putting them on the front lines. They're like, hey, you got to go live in these.
And there's something into like the cleansing of that as well.
You got to live on these settlements, right in a war zone, technically.
Yeah, and it's like who's being sent to those front lines? Is it Christians? Anyways.
In Ukraine, really?
Yeah, I mean, there's a big talk about that.
I
like,
didn't know that. No.
What's going on in Syria is Christians getting cleansed.
Yeah.
And then Ben Shapiro's like, some Christians are gonna die. Isn't that be crazy? It's like you're a fucking piece of shit.
He sucks.
I don't care how big your sister's tits are. Okay, you're a garbage man. All right.
They are huge.
They're so big.
They don't fit her body at all.
Dude, Jew pussy is a voodoo, dog. It will lock you in and make you a Zionist real quickly, dude. It's almost like the Agent Smith thing. When you put it in, you just, now you're Agent Smith. That's like Jewish pussy, dude. You stick your dick in, you're like, they deserve their own land. Stop picking on them, anti-Semitic. That's how it goes. Right.
Suddenly you're just finding dollars everywhere on the street. Totally.
We get tattooed. We will dance again, right? So I fast forward.
Oh, by the way, speaking of dancing Jews, I put in a FOIA request for the. Cause it turned out someone had FOIA'd the photographs taken by the dancing Israelis.
Yeah,
and the FBI a few years ago, a listener of Adam Green's.
Adam Green, shout out to Adam Green.
Showed the photos that the FBI gave him as a response to the FOIA. They're really shitty, like photocopies with the most important part, their faces of them celebrating completely obscured, right? Now, these are guys who went on television acknowledging they were those people. So there's no interest in protecting their privacy.
And Johnny,
not at all. So I put in a new FOIA this week with the FBI.
Johnny, limit dangerous.
So we're going to see what happens.
Dangerous conversation. Welcome to Broken
Well, no,
Sim.
I think the new FBI.
Dangerous conversation.
The new FBI maybe will...
Well, it's no. The Zionist guy...
Shh.
Okay.
I'm trying to get it.
So anyway, but here's the problem with everything is that now we're maybe it's always been this, but we're now in a place where there's not really facts anymore. It's what's your opinion on the subject, and like so you'll be like, dude, they admitted it, they did all this, and then you just have not true, you're totally lying, and you're like, okay, dude.
Well, that's where we miss old school journalism, where people the journalists did it to themselves too with blogs and all that shit. You used to be, you didn't report anything until you had at least
corporations
3
did that to us.
At least 3
corporations paid the people that would lie and say whatever they want. Like today, I was at home. Dana's like, I can't find the remote. It's just luckily stuck on MSNBC for her.
Oh, no.
And hand to God, they had some Asian chick on there going, the measles is 97% effective. I go, how can you? There are supercuts of Rachel Maddow saying the is 100% effective.
If you get the injection, it stops with you.
Yeah.
That's what she said.
John, you got to say,
It's an injection.
No, you
yeah, but they don't know it. I'm talking about getting injected by PrEP. Because we all need some PrEP in our ass.
Can we get PrEP to sponsor the show? Since apparently I'm a tranny chaser. But so she basically.
I love that I can't say injection, but you can say tranny.
No, can I? I think AI will get really crazy.
But wait, hold on. Yeah, but that's not even the problem with that particular injection. The problem is the side effects of it. So what if it prevents measles, but it causes your children to die? You know what I mean?
It's just so dumb. So, anyways, this whole thing, she talks about this debate that this group was set up.
Does she have her own like Janet Jackson style like photo collage here?
Of her there and then her as a kid. Johnny, just jump around fast forward where I can just see the screen.
But if it was all Christians that can
it's hard because the cursor has disappeared on this.
Recognize which one of you Jews should be shouting at the other Jews. You can be a good Jew or you can be a bad Jew.
Go back. You know her husband's Jewish. It's so crazy. Oh, here it is.
Who is Jewish? We have
Stop. Okay, go back just a little bit more. She breaks down everybody in this study. It's so crazy.
A problem. We've got to address it. Then I would be much more understanding this Lenten season. But it's not that. Okay, it's not that.
Her.
Look at the list of the people who were part of the study. Nice so I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 individuals who took place in this study.
13 individuals.
Yeah, her skin is perfect.
All right.
The first principal investigator there that you have, Dr. Lee Jussum, is Jewish. Dr. Jordan Peterson has said he does not believe in Christ. We're going to get to him in a second. So he's unknown, I guess we could say, an atheist, perhaps. Reverend Dr. Johnny Moore, who I would refer to as the token Christian because he's the only one. And he's the one that retweeted this study and got this going this morning. We're going to speak more about him. Then we have Dr. Joel Finkelstein, who is Jewish. We have Jacob Zucker, who is Jewish. We have Danit Sarah Finkelstein, who is Jewish. We have Sonia Yanofsky, who is Jewish. We have Alex Goldenberg, who is Jewish. We have Ohad Fadida, who is Jewish. We have Gideon Furher, who we checked, and he is Jewish. We have Simon Lazarus, who is Jewish. And the last two, Anisa Jagdeep and Ankita Jagdeep, are presumably Hindu, but they are Indian.
Okay, stop. And Indians are Zionists as fuck.
Are they?
Oh, yeah. And it gets into that the British Empire conquered them, flipped them. You know, it's like I tell you, Johnny, it's the United States, probably Canada, but definitely United States.
If you'd like to hear the rest of this episode, subscribe to Broken Simulation in your podcasting app or check us out at youtube.com/SamTripoli.
We go deep, homeboy. Aaron, open your mind. Drink from the fountain of knowledge. There's lizard people everywhere. That's some interdimensional shit. Wake up, Aaron.
This is only the beginning.
Dude, you just blew my mind.
Tinfoil hack.